Yo, 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 welcome to another episode That's Dope. My name is Godzilla. We got Josh, and we have super special guests. We got Super Eyepatch Wolf. I am super ecstatic to have you on. Like, you honestly are my favorite YouTuber. Like, I'm not trying just to butter you up, but like, every time I watch your videos, I've come out feeling enlightened and like happier for life, and I've been wanting to have you on the podcast for a minute, and it means a lot that you're joining us all the way from Ireland and make time for us. Like, I know you're super busy yourself, and it's been years since I've seen you in person, so I was like, I just want to like hit you up, talk with you again, see how life is for you. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's genuinely always cool to do stuff like this. Like, the only thing that stops me doing it more is just like kind of time, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But it's also, I feel like YouTube is a lot of sitting in a room, editing and making videos and not interacting with anybody. And so stuff like this, I find genuine value in. You know what I mean?
Dope. Right. I'm glad to hear that, because I guess like it's weird because that parasocial relationship, like where I just saw you yesterday, and then it's like you haven't seen any of us though.
Yeah. I get that a little bit, but I think it's a little bit different with us, Godswell, because we have actually met and like hung out a little bit and stuff. So that's less so.
That's dope. I'm glad though. Like, are you gonna come back to America anytime soon? Maybe AX?
I have no plans too soon. I'd say as soon as a con invited me, I'd be on a plane, because I just want to get going. At this point. But for now, I'm going to be at London MCM Comic Con for a little bit, and I think I might be going to a con in Belfast in Ireland, which I'm really excited about. I'm kind of just pumped to be like out doing shit again. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the restrictions. I'm sorry.
Yeah. How are restrictions in your area?
Yeah.
They're lightening up. We're mostly in that phase where I think everyone's kind of just acting like it's over, and it's very difficult to know what's appropriate and what's not.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'm triple vaxxed. I have not gotten COVID as far as I know, right?
Because same. Yeah.
Asymptomatic, everything else, yeah.
Right.
At this point, I'm like, look, if the government tells me to do something, I'll do it. But I at some point, I want life to return to normal,
Facts, man. Like, I feel the same way, like where like in California, like the masks are off, but at the same time, like a lot of people wear masks, and I'm like, should I not?
I like the way I try and do it is like, I'll take a look in a place, and if anyone working there is wearing a mask, I'll just put on a mask, because
I like that.
Because at least then it's like, they don't really have a choice about being there or not, so it's kind of works out. But it's tricky, right? Like, it's difficult because, like, weddings and stuff are happening again. I went to a wedding recently, which was super fun. Nearly everyone at it got COVID except me and my partner.
Wow, the chosen one right here.
Yeah.
That was really respectful. I've never heard that answer. Like, if I see someone working there and they have a mask on, I immediately put my mask on.
Yeah.
That's actually like a very good answer.
I
don't know.
Thank you. Thanks.
Did y'all work on this beforehand? Or?
No. I mean, I was like, I like that myself, because I mean, sometimes I'm just looking at other people and I'm like, well,
God's will's actually feeding me particular lines.
I say this, right?
Next,
you're gonna be a star,
we're gonna
right?
move on to my charity work, and then my workout routine. And,
PR right there. I'm the guy right there. And you're killing it though, like the more I just see you like just out there, like that. Okay, so I'm gonna address the Garfield video. It's like how
yes,
it's like, for me, I wouldn't say it's your best video, but it is like one of like the most recent like just favorites for everybody. For me, it showed like how you are able to like make a video about anything. For me, before that was like wrestling, the wrestling videos, like I don't care anything about wrestling, but
sure.
And also like this Garfield video, like I was gonna be like, I don't care about Garfield that much, but then you made me care. And then I like how was it to, I guess, first of all, like what spurred that, and then I guess I just want to talk about like the storytelling and like just like how you craft your videos, like to be like this and the Space Jam. Like, yeah, I just want to talk about like your storytelling.
Sure,
and just,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like, as for what spurred the Garfield video, it was literally someone on my Discord being like, "Oh, you like weird internet stuff? Have you ever seen /I'm sorry, John?" And I went over and I took like a little look at it, and I was like, "Oh, cool! You know what? This is going to make a really cute 20-minute video one day." And then things really got out of control, and that story just kept developing and developing. And then I started looking into guy who writes Garfield. I want to say Jim Henson, but it's not Jim Henson.
Oh man, now I'm forgetting the name too.
That's
Shoot.
killing me.
Let me look it up.
Okay, cool. And
at least it means that you got the Garfield
Jim Davis.
Jim Davis, yeah. It's probably very healthy for me that I was able to forget that.
I'm saying it's good.
Yeah. But because so when you make a video like that, like I'm not joking here, your entire life becomes Garfield, and so for weeks, like literal weeks, I was just thinking about Garfield, and it was all I was seeing, and it was like the bits in the video where like I'm kind of going insane because I see Garfield everywhere.
I was worried for you.
that's like, it's exaggerated. It's not that exaggerated. You know what I mean? And but I really enjoyed that narrative as well. Like like something so ridiculous that, someone making a video essay about Garfield begins to have their life consumed by Garfield. But that said, my mom really did send me that photo, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
That cracked me up because I mean, it made me think about like what else do like I not remember about my own childhood that like was there the whole time, right?
Yeah.
I was worried for you, like as I kept watching the video, I was like, man, like this man like really sacrificed like some of his life candle to make like some content for us. And the fact that you read so much Garfield just to make sure you were statistically correct about
1,000
like
chapters, yes.
That's crazy. 1,000 chapters?
Mm-hmm.
That was dope. It was just so like, wow, you really like put your foot in the research. Like, do you usually like do that? I guess like steep yourself like in like the subject matter like that, like, or is it like sort of a natural thing? Like sort of like how like this Berserk video was, I guess, or like a wrestling is for like like stuff that you just already generally love.
I need to steep myself in it as much as possible. So right now I'm doing a video on social media. And without giving too much away, it's about the idea of how to be a social influencer, taking particularly social influencer courses. And the plan right now is to simultaneously take 9 different social media influencer courses.
Simultaneous, wow.
Yeah. And just really get in that world, because I have some kind of fundamental problems with like step-by-step how to become a social influencer stuff. I kind of think it's a bunch of bullshit, but if someone can prove me wrong, cool. Not overly confident they will, but it's been interesting so far. And so like I'm streaming 3 hours a day for the foreseeable future, because I want to understand that side of social media as well,
Uh-huh.
And so I think immersing yourself in something is really important. Like with the Berserk video, I read Berserk start to finish in the space of about a week and a half.
Wow.
And that involved sitting down for like 8 hours a day and just reading Berserk. But then like I also had to take notes on each chapter. Like I have it's around here somewhere. It's not this notebook, but there's literally a notebook I have, and like the entire like middle section of it, like that much, is just notes on Berserk.
Wow.
And I didn't really use those notes very much, but it was important to me to make them so that my brain was thinking about it. And it was funny because like that, reading that much Berserk, and then like I had this album on repeat. I talked about it in the video, Sewer Sluts.
I have that in my my tabs right now. Like I was wanting to peep that.
Yeah, and I ended up just listening to that album on repeat for these 8-hour sessions.
Wow.
And it became like this incredibly like meditative experience, you know, of just being in this world with these characters, with this music. And it was actually like one of the best experiences, maybe the best experience I've ever had with media.
Wow.
And then like when I got to the end of Berserk, I hadn't read the last chapter, and then I read it, I was devastated. Just devastated, you know? But that's important. It's important that I put myself in a position where I can feel that emotion, because then I can make a video out of it, you know?
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of upset in that Berserk video. Like that's not a video where everything's okay.
Emotion, and I think it helped me process myself, you know? Like
yeah, so a lot of people have said that to me, and that makes me really happy, because that was kind of the goal of the video. And like at some point that video is about processing death. You know, it's not about a manga, it's about getting over the inevitability of the end.
Yeah.
Right?
I definitely appreciate that. Like, were you about to say something, Josh?
Yeah, I was like, I love that you're able to speak about this, because this is exactly what I was going to ask you.
Mm-hmm.
The mindset that it takes to do something like this, because I do actually enjoy content generally that's a little bit more longer form, these video essays. For one, it sounds like you never left college. That sounds kind of rough. You're still making essays. But on the second side of it, there's other content creators like Billiam or Quentin Reviews, where they kind of do these 8-hour videos. Billiam does like 24, 30. They're a little bit shorter than both of you guys. But it's like, I was watching this guy named Quentin Reviews. It's an 8-hour video about like shows on Nickelodeon. He's explaining how they started and where they went apart. And he's doing exactly what you do, where he goes through every episode. It's like, this is what happens. These characters get introduced. This character is now the B plot, whatever. And I'm just like, I never thought about his mindset, not as much as you're bringing it up. Like the fact that you have to engulf yourself like you did with the Garfield video or Berserk.
I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and there's nearly an element of like, I think nearly like method acting to it. And like, I know method acting is a very different thing, and I think it's emotionally probably a lot more intense, but it is like, you do just immerse yourself in that world. And that's how I think you start to think about it in a way that maybe other people kind of don't sometimes, you know? And that's because like, you know, people will say to me like, oh, you know, I love your videos. I don't know how you think of stuff like this. But I also feel like, okay, but if you sat down for a month and this was your entire life for a month, you'd probably be able to do something similar, you know? Like, I don't think what I do is that special in that regard, or that there's anything like innately special about me to be able to do that.
I mean, I get so, but at the same time, I personally have to disagree. You know, it's like there's like a way that you talk about these things, like that's just like so filled with like love and like has a philosophical bent to it. You know, like that's more than just the content. You know, and like more than just, oh, we're just going to talk about Berserk or Garfield, but it's like, how has this like impacted the world, you know, like, or like your personal world, you know?
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I waste my time a lot. You know, it's like, then again, I'm not sure what I've dived a month long into, you know, like where it's like, I'm just so focused on a thing, you know? I think that's something that's sort of special. What were you about to say, Josh?
I was about to say, earlier I was talking to Gazo, because Gazo was the one that put me on your videos initially. I don't know how long you've been making these videos, but I'm pretty sure Gazo was talking about you back in college. Like, I'm pretty sure he was talking about Eyepatch Wolf since then. And I remember just being like, you know, back then my attention span's terrible. So I was like, I'll watch it eventually.
Yeah.
But I watched a couple of your videos, the Berserk one specifically, and the Shonen Jump one you did. And those were actually amazing. And I was telling him this morning, actually right before you jumped on, I was like, my opinion is like, I feel like this is a very romantic guy. Like the way you look at the world in general is very, I mean, you're a romantic. It seems like, I don't know if that's accurate.
I think like I'm a very emotional person. I'm a very sensitive person, and I've learned that like I just can't turn that off, you know. And like I think that comes around that's apparent if you're around me, and that's apparent if you watch my stuff. And I think like for a long time, I thought I was nearly to that direction, but I've kind of more accepted lately. Like, fuck it, that's just what I am. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, you said you had a partner already, right? So it's like, I'm assuming they approve of this and it's all fine. I mean, if they're okay with it, then there's no problem, right? And it works for you. Clearly, your business has been taken off. So
Michelle's actually like, out of everyone I know, she is the least impressed with what I do. And I love that. Like, I like that she doesn't have any presence online. She doesn't have a Twitter. She doesn't have, like, you know, any visibility online at all. And I really like that, you know, because it is kind of like a break from that kind of stuff. But like, in terms of like being a romantic, like, I guess it means it depends on kind of what sense. Like, I think I kind of can be, but I think I really value connection in general. Like, I really, people are very, very, very important to me. And I think expressing why, and like, so are things, like, so is media, so is that stuff. And so I just really, it's important to me to be able to express that in like authentic ways.
Now, you saying that, I think that's what Gods was trying to say earlier, where that's what makes you special. Like, I know you're saying, you know, you're just kind of like everybody else, which you are. You're a person. We all, you know, we all get deep into different rabbit holes. But the fact that you're okay with who you are and you've gotten to that level in your life where you're like, this is just who I am.
Yeah, self-awareness about like what you are, and like, I'm going to talk about what I like.
Yeah, the genuinity of it all is very apparent. Like, you get emotional, but it's not like you're being fake. You're not trying to do this for the likes or anything. This is just
or trends or whatever. Yeah.
And people love that. Like, people always get honest connections, man. I think you're doing a great thing. I don't think everyone can do yet. Not everyone's at that level yet.
Sure. I have been doing it for 7 years. And I think at various points, like with different, like even with different videos, I think I have stumbled on that. And I think I have made videos where it's like, I think I just thought this because I made this just because for whatever way I was at that time, I was like, oh, this is what I should make as opposed to what I want to make. And it's funny because like those are the videos that like people hated, or they did okay initially and then no one watched them after that. Like, I'm kind of unusual in that, like, I will post a video and it'll do pretty good in the first 24 hours, but it will just kind of keep going and going and going and going and going. And that's actually where most of my views come from, as opposed to like whatever the most recent thing was, which I think is backwards to a lot of traditional YouTube models, but it's worked out.
Yeah. That's dope. I mean, like, what's been like, I guess, one video that you wish you could redo, and then like what's been like a favorite video of yours that you wish more people would watch?
Okay, so I made a video years ago called at this two that come to mind. One is why Attack on Titan is popular. And it's a video breaking down about like Attack on Titan's mass appeal. Now, if I could like speak to myself back then, I'd love to be like, why the fuck are you making that video? Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit why Attack on Titan's popular? Like, do you like it? If you like it, then fucking make a video about it, you little coward, you know? That's kind of like, there's an inauthenticity to that video because it's me projecting like I understand other people's tastes. And I don't like that. The other video then was a video called What Makes a Hero Feel Real. And I only made that video because I'd made another video called What Makes a Villain Feel Real. And but the key difference there is that I love villains. I love villains so much. I'm always rooting for the heel wrestler. I'm always rooting for the Vegeta in anime. Like, I love all that stuff. So I don't give a shit about heroes. I generally think protagonists and heroes are really boring. They're just like the entryway. So I ended up making a video that, like, I couldn't even tell you what the point of it now was, which is a really bad
like,
sign.
Be fair in a way, I guess, right?
Yeah, I guess so. And it was the first time I really got major backlash on YouTube. Well, one of the first. And like, people were brutal. And like, there was still a lot of people who liked the video, but I think the people who didn't like it were more right, you know? And so that made me take a step back and be like, okay, something really went wrong here. And that kind of started me on the path I am now, where it's like, I don't really think about what people want, you know? I'm a very selfish YouTuber. I don't really give a fuck what my audience wants me to make. I make what I want to make. And like, I think it's a healthy relationship with my audience, because like, my feeling is like, okay, I'm going to make whatever I want to make, and you don't have to watch it.
Don't have to, absolutely.
You
I
know?
like it.
That's a bravery right there, because I feel most people always should be in like, what does my audience want? What do they want me to talk about, right? Instead of like, what is it that you personally like the most, you know? And I guess that goes to like my next point. Like, I really like your like these quarter, like my favorite things, you know, summer, my favorite things winter, you know, because you put me onto like a ton of things or YouTubers or just media that like I think I would never have ever known about or cared about. And I think like it's really cool like how like you're quick to spread the love, you know, like to like a lot of other groups and people. I don't see a lot of people doing that. And I guess like what inspired you to, I guess, like even like make like your own favorite thing? Like, is it just this sort of mindset of like, I just gotta say like what I like, right? And you know, hopefully people dig it.
Brutally honest answer, those videos are super easy to make.
Hey.
And sometimes I've just done a big long video and I just need a breather. I just need to make something that I know how to make, that I know people enjoy, and that I'm going to get a kick out of. Because like I always have, like with those videos, you know, it's like 16 tiny essays in one video. So I really get to like stretch my legs in those videos. I really get to try out weird shit. And that's really important. But then another part of it as well, it's a way for me to promote other creators. You know what I mean? And it's interesting you say about like not a lot of people do that, but like I don't know why. You know, it's something I've never really been able to figure out with other YouTubers, but there's not a big culture of routinely pushing other creators,
Yeah.
you know?
Competitiveness
like,
in their head.
Yeah, like what is this competitiveness that like where like is there like a rule that you got to be competitive, I guess, with other YouTubers, especially like in your field? I've always wondered like how come there's not like a more collaboration.
When I started out, I was definitely competitive. Like I'd be like, oh, I just passed this person out and I just passed this person. Oh, but this person's doing really well. Fuck that guy. Like that was literally. And then like over time, I realized how completely pointless that mindset was. I was like, okay, I'm gonna help other creators. But then like, you know, say like social causes and stuff, you know, like not to get on anyone's case sometimes, but like, you know, I see some people and it's like, you know, they'll tweet out like, you know, Black Lives Matter or, you know, trans rights or something like that. And it's like, that's cool. Okay. Like it is cool that like you're showing that you're kind of standing with these people, because like I understand that when you tweet stuff like that out, fucking very nasty corner of Twitter gets pissed. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, but like when's the last time like you promoted a trans creator or, you know, a female creator or a black creator?
Like
you know
actually
what I mean?
doing the work of it rather
you
than
know,
just sort of saying it.
It, you know, that's not the only criteria by which I will promote people, but I find YouTube very difficult. You know, I find YouTube really hard sometimes. I take a lot of abuse and there's sometimes I don't want to do it. I'm a white middle-aged man.
Are we middle-aged now?
I'm like 35.
And I'm middle-aged. Yeah. We got some time, right?
I don't know if we're going to be real, but my point is like I'm doing this on easy mode. You know, it's fucking hard out there and it's rough for people. And so if I can push those people and like give, like when I say push them, I mean just give them a little boost. Like hopefully that's enough, and hopefully that like encourages, you know, other people to get into it and stuff.
I did want to say, I mean, that's an amazing answer too. I was like, I remember you saying villains and how interesting they are to you. For one, I would like to say I agree with that. I think I talked to Gajo about this pretty frequently, but I think villains generally drive stories. That's what gets you to read a story.
Totally.
Characters like Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, or these interesting characters where you're just not sure, and they make you uneasy.
Yeah.
The better the villain, Griffith even, the better the villain, the more likely I am to be like engrossed in the story and nervous for the characters, which gives you like some kind of a connection.
Yeah, like you say Hisoka, like name one dull scene with Hisoka, you know?
Yeah, you don't know. You don't know how to read the situation. And I think that the anonymity or that confusion is just amazing to have.
Totally.
Compared to, you know, a villain like, sadly, I love Sonic the Hedgehog as a kid, but like Dr. Eggman is not a compelling villain. He's just, I'm taking over the world, and you're like, all right, whatever. Now
I
that
don't know,
means,
dude. I've read some Sonic comics that really gave me food for thought.
really?
There was one IDW Sonic comic recently, and Dr. Eggman got oh god, the irony of forgetting this word, amnesia.
Okay.
And he turned really good, but no one really knew if he actually had amnesia or not. And it was actually super compelling. It was like, oh, this is fucked up. Like, this is weird, you know? It was good. Those IDW Sonic comics are actually pretty dope.
I'm check that out.
Interesting. I see clips of them every now and then online, but I'm like, do I really want to jump into a Sonic comic?
Yeah. The first time I bought one, I was at my local Forbidden Planet, and the guy behind the counter was like, hey, Super Eyepatch Wolf. And I was like, hey, please don't tell anyone I read Sonic.
Yeah, man. I loved it as a kid, but I was just like, this, like, you know, after Sonic Adventure 2, I think it took a nosedive for me. I was just like,
as someone who beat Shadow the Hedgehog on stream just this week, let me tell you, I agree.
Dog, Shadow the Hedgehog. That was okay. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say this because I had another question for you, but I have to say this.
Okay, that's okay.
I love Sonic the Hedgehog. First video game I ever played was Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Knuckles, I guess. Moved forward, went through Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, all those games, went through them all. And then Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog got released back to back. And I remember as a kid, because as a kid, you're very accepting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh, I finally got a game. It's $40. It was amazing. Back then it was 40, inflation, right? But
struggles.
Yeah, man. I remember playing those games when I beat them. Before I beat Shadow, when I beat Sonic Heroes, I remember immediately thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, this isn't good. Like, this isn't a good game. And I was sad because, like, I don't want to play this anymore. And I'm like, I just spent this money and I love this franchise, but I'm like, this isn't a good game. It's repetitive. Shadow the Hedgehog comes out a year later. I'm like, maybe this will be better. Maybe it'll be closer to the adventure titles. There's so much wrong with that game.
Trash. Damn. Oh my god. It's interesting to hear you say that, though, because I call that my Tony Blair moment. Because I remember watching an episode of The Simpsons, and it was season 11 or 12. And Tony Blair flies into... They're in England, and Tony Blair flies into the scene with a jetpack. And then he's like, I'm Tony Blair. And then he says something, then he flies out. And I was sitting there as like a 9-year-old, and I was like, that was bad. Oh. That wasn't funny. The Simpsons is meant to be funny. That wasn't funny. So it's interesting that your Tony Blair moment was Sonic Heroes.
Yeah, it's like when I first was like, oh my god, not because like as a kid, I'd play fighting games. Like my brother would be like, this character's not fair. I'm like, everyone's balancing their own way. Like as a kid, you're so accepting, and then you realize like
what a beautiful notion,
right?
Yeah, you get older, you're like, oh my god, they didn't balance this at all. Like this is a terrible game. But my second question was definitely going to be about your girlfriend, because you said she's not on social media or anything. Like, how did you guys meet? Like, how did that all take place? Because it sounds like a very genuine relationship, also.
Oh, we've been together for like 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, we met when we were about 18.
13? Oh,
18.
Oh yeah, 35, not 7. Not 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know. It's just I remember like she was my first serious girlfriend, and I remember being like, okay, my first girlfriend, let's see how this goes. And, you know, I remember saying to her, like, you know, I'm not really looking for like anything too long term. We're both just about to go to college. And she was like, well, you know, my aunts and uncle met when they were our age and they're still together. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. You know? 70 years later, she fucking got me. But it's been, it's, you know, I think like with all relationships that long, it's really in its own way been like several different relationships as we've kind of gone through different phases of our life. But like at the end of the day, I think the purest thing I could say about her is like she gets home in the evening and I still get a kick out of seeing her. You know, like she'll still make me laugh and I'll still be like excited to hang out. And like I think there's a lot of, you know, more in-depth stuff you could say about human connection and all that kind of stuff, but really if the person you're with is still making you happy after all that time, that's probably a decent sign, you know?
Yeah. I mean,
so
you guys survived the pandemic together, right?
Yeah, we did. It was actually she works as a graphic designer. She's a project manager, and she had to start working from home. And I was psyched because she was home 5 days a week and we hung out so much. And it's only in the last 2 months that she's after going back to work. And it's been genuinely really hard because like, I'm like, oh, so this like 11-hour stretch a day, I'm just alone for that now.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And that fucking
dang,
sucks.
puppy dog.
Kind of like it. Part of it's like I miss her, and then part of it's just I miss humans. You know?
Yeah. Do you actually like get to like hang out with people? I guess like, or
I mean,
you just
I
have to be
do. Like,
alone.
I have a good group of friends that like I see regularly enough. But if I have to be careful because if I let it slide, I could go a week without seeing anyone. You know, and that's really bad for your mental health. And that's going to give you YouTube brain as well. YouTube brain is what I call it when the numbers get in your head too much and you stop thinking about people as people. So like a good solution to YouTube brain is going hanging out with a friend or like going to a con and meeting a bunch of fans.
This is interesting. I almost want you to write a small book on like how not to be an asshole when you
Yeah,
when you get bigger.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
that's interesting because the title of my next video is literally how not to be a social media influencer.
Yeah, no, I don't know who I was. Oh, I was talking to my brother about this. We were on Discord yesterday, and he's like, I have a friend who's a YouTuber, and he does like videos. He's like, he's averaging like 1,000 views a video, so he's getting a little bit up there. He's getting better.
Sure.
And but he was just like, yeah, he does a lot of like power scaling videos and like this person versus this person, whatever. But he's like, as he's doing this, he's getting more popular, but he wasn't popular in real life. Like they met in college. He's like, he wasn't cool in real life. So now that he's getting more popular, like it's getting to him. So when they interact and they go places, he kind of brings up his YouTube channel all the time where he starts saying things that are just like, it sounds almost like a video essay. And we're just like, oh, there's going to be like some weird punchline to this joke that's not going to land. And he's like, he notices that. And I also had a friend myself that felt very similar to that, where I was like, oh, you know, he's getting bigger online and now it's transitioning to real life and it's just not connecting correctly.
Yeah, so I would say I was probably like that as well. I think I would definitely have been guilty of that too, because YouTube forces you to see yourself in an entirely different way, you know? And like when I look back over the years, I can think of several moments where YouTube really turned me into someone that I did not want to be, you know? And I think coming back from that and trying to get humble again and try and kind of stay grounded, that's some of the hardest shit I've had to do on YouTube.
How did you like, what was the moment where you realized you had to come back to ground? Like,
there was a couple of things. I had like some like falling out with friends and stuff like that, like all stuff that's thankfully like dealt with now. But I also remember like there was this one Christmas I went home to my parents and I realized like I hadn't really seen them properly for a couple of weeks or months. Like I kept just like, you know, making excuses kind of not to go home. And then like I went home and we had such a good time. I have two I have a mom and my dad, and they like I really get on with both of them. But I also realized like, oh shit, they're getting older. You know what I mean? Like they are not young people anymore. And we only have so much of this time left. And I need to start that made me start thinking about like my human connections more and like the people I wanted to kind of be around, and like, was I going to keep prioritizing YouTube over the people in my life, which I had been. You know, I absolutely had been, because YouTube was such a dopamine rush, you know, constantly. Like I'd be at parties full of people and I'd have my phone out on Twitter because I can talk to hundreds of people, you know. And like, you know, now like I would have to try to get less than 1,000 notes on Twitter. You know what I mean? Like that is how many people want to interact whenever I say or do anything. That's not healthy and it's not real. And I have to be very careful with that stuff. And it's still something that like I have to try and work on. But it's difficult as well, because like becoming like big online, it's very isolating in its own way, because all of a sudden it's like, oh, my boss is an asshole. Everyone's boss is an asshole. You can talk to any Joe Schmo on the corner about that and you can have a conversation. How do you have a conversation with someone where it's like, someone made a video about how I'm shit and it got 100,000 views. You know, like how does that? How do you relate that to the average person?
Yeah, that's wild.
You're such a minority. There's no one to like coach you guys through this. Honestly,
it's all brand new too. I mean, it's like what other period of life really like has had?
Could people interact with this many people at once?
And like, you know, there's so many weird problems. Like, you know, like, oh, this person is kind of online stalking me. This is the, you know, this weird shit is happening. Like, you know, I'm getting these threats. I don't know how serious they are, and it's new grounds for a lot of people, you know, because like 10 years ago, what I am didn't exist. And there's a lot of figuring that stuff out yourself.
Right.
I mean, how has that journey been? And I guess like, would you, I guess, like if you had a chance to like choose, would you do this like lifestyle again or?
Oh, 100%. I think like when I think of my life before YouTube, I think I was happy, you know, and I think I'm as happy, like in some ways I'm as happy now as I was then, but there's been more extreme highs and lows, you know. But I mean, it's afforded me so much. Like it's afforded me to come on this podcast and hang out with you guys, you know, and like, you know, so far I'm having a really good time here. This is really fun. This would never have happened without YouTube. You know, like forget like us meeting God's Will. I never would have been in LA. You know, there's no chance I ever would have gone to an anime expo and like met all the fucking cool people I've met. You know, like you know, one of my best friends in the world right now is Wooly Versus. And you know, it looks like we're going to be able to hang out for a couple of days in about a month, and like we're going to be in Calgary for a thing, and it's like, you know, I get to hang out in Calgary. That's where Bret the Hitman Hart's from, you know. And it's like I love doing it. If I could New Game Plus my life, I would absolutely go become a wrestler. But I mean, for a first run, I'm happy with how things have gone so far.
I like that.
Even with all the shit you have to put up with.
Right. It makes me wonder what I would do for New Game Plus. What were you about to say, Josh?
No, I was actually thinking about that exact thing. It was weird that you brought up the New Game Plus. Like,
yeah, I like that.
I'm playing Elden Ring right now. It's taking me forever. I was doing everything, but New Game Plus is in that game too. And there's also respecking, and I'm sure everyone here is aware of what that is. Just redistribution of your stat points. But when you start up a game, you don't know where your stat points are supposed to go. So you could call them a waste. You know, they're wasted. You could say that, or you can invest. But I feel like in real life, people have spec into things they weren't going to do later, right? How many people took classes that they were like, oh, I don't even use this.
All right.
Like, I should have spec into something else. Or you invested so much time, and you know the sunk cost fallacy? I'm sure you guys are aware of that. Yeah, like so many people do things, and they're like, I can't quit. I've invested 12 years of my life in this thing. I'm like, you could have invested 12 years of your life doing something else. That would have actually helped you in the end game, you know? So it was interesting that you're just like, I would go 1,000% mage route and go and be a wrestler.
Yeah, 100%. So I actually spent 6 months training to be a wrestler.
Wow.
But I was training to be a wrestler around the same time I started my podcast, and the podcast kind of led into doing YouTube. And I loved it. It was brutal. Like it was like I like martial arts a lot. You know, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, I've done boxing, I've done black belt in taekwondo. Professional wrestling was the toughest training I've ever done in my life, because the object of everything else is to not get your head kicked in. You have no choice in wrestling.
Yeah, just take the hit for real, right?
Yeah, you have to. And I got to a point where I was like, I was really enjoying it, but I was like, I think I can put my whole ass into YouTube podcasting or wrestling. And that was the kind of split point for me, you know? So New Game Plus, I would love to explore that other avenue.
That's kind of a beautiful thing, to be honest.
That's pretty dope.
Like put your whole ass into something.
Right.
The phrasing on that. Yeah, no, I was definitely, this is like a slight sidebar, but it related to what you were just saying, where I'm sure someone else is going to hear this and hopefully this helps them too. But Godswill knows I work with Godswill now at, you know, the manga company.
We can say it. Yeah, Viz. Okay. We both work together at Viz. So yeah, like he started this year, and I mean, he's been a natural with it. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy like how your life, because like he was supposed to do professional MMA, and
Yeah.
No
I
way!
started seeing like
Wow.
just how
I
things
was
changed.
I was getting really like I was moving in the leaderboards and stuff for that,
What
and
what
then
what what was your discipline, if you don't mind me asking?
so I actually started at a jiu-jitsu school, but then I ended up going like I started when I was 18, 2010. And then I moved into I fell in love with striking. I found out I was pretty explosive because my dad used to box for Cuba. So genetically I just got lucky that my, fast twitch muscles and things like that.
Sure, sure.
So Muay Thai, kickboxing, all that stuff was
So
amazing for me.
Muay Thai is one of the only things I've never done, and I want to learn it so badly because I just want a demonic low kick. Like that's
That was my thing.
Yeah. Oh.
Yo, I was like,
I like low kicks are like, you're never gonna see an awesome looking low kick, but they're literally the most practically useful thing in a fight. Like they're fucking amazing.
Gaza was actually in my corner. I actually had Gaza sign on as one of my cornermen because I didn't need coaches. Like, okay, everyone needs coaches, but for me personally, my thing was more of a mental thing. I wanted to be calmed down when I was fighting. I didn't want someone yelling at me and saying crazy shit. So I just had my friends in my corner. And I was like, hey, like literally one of my friends, I had one time where my coach came and I was like, all right, I told him ahead of time. I was like, hey, I'll hear what you have to say between rounds for like 30 seconds. And I want like my friend to talk to me. So he'd come in and be like, hey, listen, you got to, he'd get all in my face. And he's like, all right. And he'd bring my friend in and my friend would be like, hey, Josh, you feeling all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. He's like, you want to go get some food after this? And I was like, that'd be nice, man.
Oh,
I'm like in the middle of a fight.
Fucking awesome. Oh,
but it's like, it calmed me down. And
so whenever I upload a video, I hate uploading videos. It's the worst thing. But what I always think is like, listen, later on, it's going to be me and Michelle, big pizza, episode of Always Sunny. And it's that same, we just have to survive this,
Yeah, it makes you better, man. But my thing was like, I can't remember hopefully I can get back to this point, but I was like, I was fighting for so long. And then I realized like throughout the 12 years I was fighting, I even became a coach at one point. I was the coach for Dallas in Texas for kickboxing. But I remember just being like, all the jobs I had in between that, because fighting isn't bringing a lot of money, especially early on. I remember just being like, I keep getting jobs and they feel dead end and I can't invest a shit ton into them because my ass was halfway out. You know what I mean? I'm still fighting. I still have a dream here to be a fighter. But then when Gaza gave me this opportunity and I started working for Viz, I was like, I really like this job. And I was still, Gaza might remember, I was still fighting at that same time. I was preparing for a fight in March. And then I was just like, you know what? Like, I have a good job. I don't want to lose this. Like, I don't want to ruin this. This Viz Media job is amazing. So I immediately was just like, I probably should stop fighting. And that's where the whole ass came in. I was like, I got to put 100% of my focus on this one thing and make sure I do it. So if like my, boss is like, hey, do this thing, I've got it done in a day. Like, that's how I want to be. I want to be that proficient to where I'm not replaceable.
Well, like, even in, with that last Berserk video, like a big part of that was like, you have the dream and the dream's great, but the dream never ends. Like, it's impossible for the dream to end. And at some point you got to just focus on like what's right for you and what makes you happy now. And so I totally get that.
And it kind of goes in that the connections thing.
Yeah, I want to go back to like that Berserk point. Like, I think like where like it's okay to like to switch dreams, like it's okay if you don't follow through all the way.
Do it, and that becomes a problem.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Yeah, because you feel like you're quitting on yourself, and you're like, oh, I'm letting people down, and all this other stuff.
Well, like I wanted to be so many things over the years, and I would say I failed at, well, honestly, all of them except YouTube. You know what I mean? But like I went from thing to thing to thing, and for a long while I just wanted to be an illustrator. I love fan art, I love drawing, I love it so much. I'm not very good at it. Like I can make a picture that people will think look nice, but when you compare it to people who have been drawing their whole lives and who have a lot of talent, I am just not that. And letting go of that was really, really hard for me. And I think it was only when I started YouTube that I was really able to let go of it, because I was like, oh, this is what it feels like to succeed at something. And YouTube was never my dream. This whole thing was a giant accident. But now I still draw, but I draw just for me, and I can put it online and I can get 20 notes and that's fine. And I keep it well away from the YouTube shit. Like, you know,
How about that? I was like, are you ever gonna mix the two in a way, or like, you know, just be like, hey everyone, look at what I did, and then
I don't think so, honestly. There's just no reason to.
Yeah.
You know, I have people already have many opinions about who I am and what they do.
You need to
and
keep
I
something
have,
sacred for yourself, right?
Yeah. Like I have my
hey, I would love to see what you got.
Keyboard over here. Would you guys like to hear me play a song?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, what do you
No,
play?
that's just for me.
I mean, hey, you know, we're not big, you know, we're just homies just hearing what you do, right? But it's sick. Honestly, that's dope though, you know. It's like that you do have like your own sacred stuff. And I think sometimes that's how I feel about like gaming and like streaming. It's like I do want to like make a sort of career with that, but at the same time I do. I always feel bad whenever I hear someone gets bummed out of their favorite thing, and you know, like whereas now it's just so much work, especially like in this era, like where everyone has to try to monetize or try to, I guess, corporatize whatever they do, like on the internet, right?
So I do a kind of stream with patrons sometimes, like a patron exclusive stream where I basically, it's like everyone can listen to me talk to someone, and I bring them up on the virtual stage and we talk about just whatever. And there's a lot of smaller like YouTubers and stuff, and I get a lot of questions about like, oh, my cat channel's just not growing, you know, like it's not going well or whatever, and you know, I really want to do this but I don't know if I can. And those conversations were as much a part of informing the whole kind of, you know, sometimes you got to walk away from your dreams Berserk video as anything else. But the thing I always say to them is like, would you be making these videos if I could guarantee you that you're not going to have any success with them? And if the answer to that is no, stop making them. Like the biggest advice I could give anyone for getting big on social media is don't try. Like, do the shit you love, and if it's going to take off, it'll take off. But don't be one of these people combing through your analytics, trying to measuring audience retention and all that shit. Just fucking do what you love, and if you still love it, keep doing it. But like, because what's on the other side of success as a social media influencer, it's not going to be good enough to force you to make shit that you don't like making.
That's kind of amazing.
That's crucial. I mean, that's great for me to hear. You know, it's like this is episode 92. You know, but at the same time, I don't really feel, I guess, that pressure to be like, oh, we got to blow up, or else, you know, I got to stop. Like, I really just enjoy like talking to friends and people I like what they do, and just be like, how'd you do this? How do you feel? What's going on in your world right now? You know.
So some of my favorite shit I've ever made has like 20,000 views. I understand that sounds like a lot, but in comparison to my other stuff, that's not a lot. Like just relatively, but the feelings I had making that shit were so fucking strong, and they're such great memories. And like, you know, when I think of that, I don't think of YouTube comments. I don't think of a view count. I think of like spending the day with this person and making this cool thing. Sorry, what were you going to say?
That's dope.
Oh, no, it was just, I was talking about, I was about to go into what you were talking about, identity and, walking away from what you love, or your goals, right? Because a goal, I guess, doesn't necessarily have to be what you love. It's something that you've, again, almost romanticized in your head, like this is what's going to be. And I feel like that's very difficult for a lot of people. And like I said earlier, like it hurts to walk away, because I think as people, we do this thing where we like to attach ourselves to identities as fast as we can, because we don't understand who we are, especially when we're younger. You're working through a lot of things, right?
Totally, yeah.
You at 18 is completely different than you at 35, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like the ideas you had, like, I'll do this, and whatever. And then you get old and you're like, oh man, did I really want that? And even when you realize you don't, accepting that and being okay with not being associated with that thing anymore is very difficult. Because now you have to figure out who you are, make sure people you have to make sure, you don't have to make sure, but you want people to see you for who you are, but you're not sure where that is either. So it's a very shaky ground.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to figure it out. And I think the best way to figure it out is to fuck up and get things wrong and try shit that doesn't work. You know? Do you two want to hear my like failed electronica album? You know, it's like there's a lot
we're
of
okay. We're okay.
Yeah, no, you are. But I think a
that.
problem as well is kind of like we get real hung up on destination, right? You know, and I think that's a problem with media. I think a huge part of media is like, and then he turned 25 and his business was thriving and his wife was beautiful, and that's the end of the road. Credits roll, you know. But in reality, most destinations, all they really are is like a halfway point on a different journey. And that's kind of something I've learned. It's like whatever you think the ends is, it never is. And you can't go chasing an ending, and you can't punish yourself when you don't get one.
I love that. This is beautiful because of what you just said earlier too about death. And that people don't think, you were talking about your parents and how they were getting older, which is something I think I brought up with my friends too a couple times. But the destination is what people think about all the time. And that becomes an issue because they're like, I'm sure you've all heard
is death anyways, right?
But yeah, we're all at the end of the road. We're all going to be gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is what it is. But I don't think that's what we should be focused on. I feel like what you were talking about earlier, even the connections you have with the people that while you're alive, the journey is, that's what you should be focused on. Life doesn't have to be abysmal. You don't have to be just miserable because you know the end's going to be, whatever. I just think that was a beautiful thing, and I think the fact that it wrapped around so well.
For real. And for me, I guess like just to sort of finish things up, I got to talk about
for a
One
bit
Piece.
longer if you guys have time.
I mean, I'm super down if you're
down. Actually,
yeah.
I think I'm probably okay for the next 30 minutes or so.
Sick. Awesome. Well, I got to bring up One Piece. How do you feel?
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, that was like the last thing that we got to like hang out with together. And I mean, I just got to ask you, like, how do you feel? Like, that's, the whole big round, like the journey, not the destination, right? I guess I gotta just ask, like, how do you feel about One Piece today, right now? Like, your journey with One Piece, especially like now that we're like in such like a climatic part. I think
so. I don't want to break your heart here, Godswill, but I am way behind on One Piece.
Oh man,
I am like at the start of Wano. Luffy just got put in jail, is where I am.
Oh wow, okay, good. No,
we're about the same area.
Good.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm a little bit ahead of that. Like,
that's probably the best to like not be like week to week with it. But I don't know how to not. Be
I can't be week to week with anything. The only thing I read week to week is Grappler Baki, and I don't know why. But that's just the only thing I keep up with. Everything else I will save up and binge. So like like last Christmas, I sat down in my parents' house and binged like 90 chapters of One Punch Man, and that was so much fun. Like that, and I'm probably going to do One Piece this Christmas, I'd say.
Okay, tell me your opinion, because I was literally about to start reading One Punch Man because I've seen the 2 seasons. I love it. One Punch Man, like after I finish, I'm reading My Hero Vigilantes right now.
Yeah,
but I either want to do Jujutsu Kaisen because it's big, everyone's talking about it, or I go to One Punch Man. Which one should I jump into next?
Jujutsu Kaisen's fun. I would say it depends how you feel about like anime versus manga, but I would nearly recommend the Jujutsu Kaisen anime over the manga because the anime is so well produced and just such a bonkers production. Manga is still very good, but personally, I think the anime is more fun. One Punch Man, it's really I don't know that you're ever going to beat Yusuke Murata's art. So I'm talking about his adaptation of the webcomic as opposed to the webcomic, but it's one of those things where you're just experiencing a master at work, and it's really hard. Even like if the story isn't like always amazing, because it can kind of be slow. Like where I left it was like at the climax of this giant fight, and there were so many amazing pieces of art in the fights up to that, and it was so enjoyable. So I think I would probably lean One Punch Man. I would prefer One Punch Man to Jujutsu Kaisen, but kind of each to their own on that one, right? Like I'm really not one for like, this show is better than this show and you're wrong if you think otherwise.
Right.
Like I'm just, I've been doing anime YouTube for fucking 7 years. I am out of energy for that kind of arguments.
I think everyone should be at this point. I'm just like, enjoy what you want, y'all. Like, liking one thing doesn't take away from liking the other thing. Like, it's not a zero-sum game. One thing also I did really want to ask about this is like, have you always had an eye for detail like this, or like did you like grow it And also I guess like being sincere, like I guess like what you like too. Like was that always like that, or did you like have to like grow into these things? Because for me, I don't think I have an eye for detail. Like, you know, like when you like look at this art and I'm like, oh, I don't think I've ever looked at this art. Or is it because like you researched it in a way like that you're like, I'm gonna look at this art?
See, it's hard to say because I don't know if I describe myself as having an eye for detail. I think, to me, all I really do is I experience a piece of art, and if it makes me feel strongly enough, I will explore why it's making me feel that way. So I'm really not like, if I'm talking about a detail or something, it's not really because I've kind of looked at it and been gone, oh, I've noticed this little thing. It's probably because I'm looking at the scene and going, man, like where's this fucking emotion coming from? What's happening here? Like what's
hating?
why why is this hitting me like this? You know? And then like I'll write a paragraph and I'll be like, you know what, that's not it. And I'll rewrite it and I'll be like, that's not it. And then I'll rewrite it. And then maybe the third or fourth time I'll be like, okay, now we're kind of like getting it. You know what I mean?
Wow. That's cool. I mean, have you always had that sort of introspection, I guess, reflection type of deal? Or like, is it like it's a skill that I think that that's come because like you write your scripts for YouTube?
I think I'm pretty introspective, and I think it developed with writing the scripts. In terms of sincerity, it's interesting to hear you guys bring that point up a couple of times. I don't know if I describe myself as like an especially sincere person, and I think that, well, not like I try to be, but on YouTube that becomes more difficult because personas are inherent to online content. Like you can't be authentic on YouTube. It's not possible.
Mm.
And that's why sometimes whenever I see a creator who's like, you know, you guys like me because I'm real with you. And it's like, well, like, are you? Like,
yeah,
are there cuts in this video? Are there parts of your speech that you didn't want us to see? You know, because like when you guys watch one of my videos, you know, you're not getting me necessarily. You're getting me scripted. That script being rewrote probably 4 or 5 times, then edited into a visual video, which is then recut another 4 or 5 times. So at the end of that, you're getting a product. And I want that product to feel authentic, but it's not an authentic version of me, even if I want it to be, you know?
But it is an authentic representation of you.
Is it though?
It feels so. Only because like
it might feel that way.
Right,
but,
that's fair.
Like, if you wanted an authentic experience of me, you would hang out with me for a day, you know? Mm-hmm. And like for even for more than this podcast, because like I come to this podcast, like, you know, I'm buddies with Godswill. I'm like, that's cool and everything. But it's like, this is also kind of, we're talking a lot about YouTube and online personas and stuff like that. And it is me, but it's like, it's me reflecting on a lot of that stuff. It's hard to say, but
that's interesting.
I think like the idea of authenticity is very tricky online, and I'm always reluctant because I do get that a lot where people are like, you know, you're just so sincere and you're really passionate and you're really authentic, and like I do try and be authentic, and it's important to me to try and be honest and try and be real. But over the years doing this, I have recognized that it's like there's an unescapable element of persona, of projecting an identity. And it's not about some people being more or less real than others. It's about degrees of fakeness.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's...
Although, at the same time, like, what you're just saying, like, right now is, like, I think that's where it proves, at least to me, the point, like, where
okay,
it's like...
so this is
like, here's the curtain, there's a curtain,
this is the problem, though. I feel like whenever I say this shit, people are always like, well, that proves you're real. And I'm like, no, that's not it, you know? Because, like, I take your... like, no, I'm not real. Your point, but
he's really real.
Yeah, you know, I take your point, but I actually get that a lot. And I nearly feel like even if I am being 100% real, I think people should view content creators with a degree, maybe not skepticism, but just knowing awareness that there is a pursuit of profit happening here.
It's
there
the most
isn't
polished version of themselves.
Yeah. Like let me try and give an example. Like,
it goes back
I
to like altruism in a way, I guess. Like, it's like, how can someone be truly altruistic, right?
Okay, here's the thing, right? Say if that, like, I saw something in the news before this podcast, and it was like an unpopular. Say if I had an unpopular opinion on something, like, let me try and think of. Let me try and think of something super hypothetical here.
Something that won't get you canceled for real, right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's say no, that's too much. I'm trying to think here.
He's just too real, man. He can't even come up with hypotheticals, right?
I know, right?
No, it's because I think I feel like if I think of a hypothetical that's too current, people are going to be like, he actually thinks that.
He actually feels this way. Oh my god, cancel him.
But say like, okay, I'm pretty fucking left. I'm like in just everything. But say like I had some really specific conservative belief that I would know would get me in trouble, like, online or with a lot of my audience. I am like financially motivated not to express that opinion publicly. Now I can tell you, I do not have an opinion like that, but you guys don't know that, and it's financially in my interest to not let you know if I did.
But
I don't,
Yeah. That's perfect. I think that sums up exactly what you're saying. Again, it's kind of like we said, it's the most polished version of yourself, most palatable version of yourself.
Yeah. Whereas if I had like, if I had like a stable job with the Irish government and I was just on this podcast right now, knowing that like my internet persona matters fuck all, I could say whatever I want.
Who could stop me, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think beholden to the audience in a way.
Maybe that is a very like skeptical way of looking at it, but that's just the kind of shit I mean when like authenticity is a tricky thing online.
Because you can actually edit. Yeah, you can edit yourself and how you present yourself.
Yeah, constantly.
And I think that's what people do with social media, right? They show you the best versions of themselves. Like, here's the photos of me at this perfect angle.
Right.
And here's me over here. And like, then you look at them in person, like, you don't look like that though. Not all the time, at least.
Yeah, but like, imagine stuff like, how do I put this? I believe in women. I'm like a feminist. I like, I really have a lot of strong beliefs and all that stuff, and like I've been public about those beliefs. But then like, what if I went and made like a sexist joke with some dude friend of mine? Who's that? Like, what the fuck is happening there? Like, so authenticity is infinitely nuanced and complicated, I guess, is just the kind of point I would make there.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think that's a very fair thing to say. I
guess when people say like, I'm authentic or I'm sincere, I like to believe I am, but also be careful there.
Mm-hmm.
It almost sounds like authentic almost is like a replacement for the word like uninhibited. Like, you are 100% yourself all the time, but I don't think anyone is like that. I think everyone chooses their words somewhat carefully.
Yeah, like, right. There's an element. There's an element of that in everyone. I think it just gets massively amplified when you're an online creator.
Someone was saying this about personalities. I remember I think we talked to Vampy Bit Me about this, where she was asking us, it's a different podcast we had, where she was talking about which ones are our favorite Ninja Turtles. And I was like, I like Leonardo and Raphael. Like, I've always been between those two, never been able to figure it out. And Gonzo said he liked Leonardo. And I was like, she's like, oh, well, I like Michelangelo. And I was like, that's cool. It almost tells you like how you want to be perceived by people.
Yeah.
Which turtle you choose, because they're all funny. Different parts of personality.
Even you saying that gives me such an impression of the kind of person that would say Michelangelo is their favorite. Because I wouldn't say him ever. He would be my least favorite. Still love them. They're still the fucking Ninja Turtles. They're still all great. You know?
Favorite of all.
Yeah, it's like, the goofy one, really?
You're right.
Yeah, like apparently a lot of girls really like Michelangelo. My thing was like, I was like, okay.
Michelle likes Michelangelo, actually. Yeah, that's interesting.
She's not most women, but no, I definitely got to me where I was like, you know what? I feel like the turtles represent like a full person. Like, you're not taking yourself too seriously, but you're also working on yourself. Like, you're a leader, like Leonardo, like where you're constantly self-improvement. Then you have the intelligence, the mindfulness of Donatello. But then there's also that rebellious side of everybody who's just like, that's very normal. People have an ego,
that's
which
such
is
a
Raphael.
Fascinating way to look at the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I never.
Yeah, I'm about to make my own video, so please don't take that. I'm playing. But that was like one of the things I got, and I was just like, you know what? Someone, I can't remember which philosopher said it, but he's like, he believes that people's personalities, it's not one personality. You're multiple things. So depending on the day, depending on the day, you could be the funny guy. But depending on a different group you're in, you're now like the leader of the group, and you don't really crack a lot of jokes at this particular job, maybe. And everyone's like, "Oh, he's so serious. He's such a heroic figure." But then when you go with your girl, you're just kind of like joking around, farting around the house.
Totally, yeah.
You're an idiot, and she doesn't respect you at all. But it's a great relationship, whatever it might be.
But like that's kind of what I like love about Michelle. It's like she doesn't give a fuck about like 100 million views or like the most viewed video on The Simpsons or like all these things that I'm really proud of. She's just like, cool. What pizza are we getting? It's like like that's you need that.
Yeah, like multiple sides and someone like who knows you, who really knows you, I guess, right? Like yeah, I mean, it's making me think about like what does it mean to be authentic, I guess. It's like what times am I not being authentic, I guess, to who I think I am, and I guess like what I want people to see of me, right?
Even that's broken down, right, with the whole idea of the super ego, the ego and the id, which is like the ego is, I believe, the id is instinctually who you are. Like you see a woman, something happens, you act on it. That's your id, and then your ego is what you present to people. I believe your super ego is what you believe of yourself. So like you're like, I am Leonardo. I am this is who I am. Like this character reminds me of myself. And you're like,
yeah.
Fucking Jason Bourne reminds you of yourself. You know what I mean? But like whatever other people perceive of you is like your ego. It's like a lot. But it's very hard to be authentic. I think you can only voice your actual opinions. And
I guess the reason, I would say authentic, because like I feel like I watch other people and I'm like, cool, man, like that's a cool trend, or like I'm glad you did, you dove into this, like this is like sort of your field of sorts, but you maybe didn't feel it, and maybe it's like a sort of bias, a confirmation bias of sorts. So it's like, oh man, he feels the same way as I do about a thing, versus maybe someone that is also authentic, but maybe I don't agree with in a way. Like I definitely have to like sort of analyze. It's like, why do I say authentic, especially for you, But I'm glad that you challenged that. It's like why, like why would people say this about me? And it's like, what does this really mean? I even like in that last Berserk video, like I remember like how your interpretation of like that Casca Guts relationship of sorts, and you had to preface it where it's like, it's people who know more about this or have like their own feelings about this, and it almost like in a way, like you downplayed like your own emotion about it. But I was like, no, I thought this was very valid. I thought this was actually more valid than like what other people might be able to say about it too.
I mean, like I was proud of that section. I was happy with how it came together, and like it did touch on like I guess some real stuff for me. But at the same time, I just think in discussions of like specifically with that stuff, like abuse and assault and stuff like that, that's the kind of stuff I never want to presume to speak for another person or their experience.
That's a good point.
And so that was mainly what that was about.
It's a good self-awareness. At the very least, we could say you're self-aware.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I think has been pretty easy to spot out throughout this whole conversation. We can call it introspection if you want, but I feel like just being aware of how you sit in the universe, and and it sounds really hippy dippy, but like how you sit in the universe and where you are relative to everybody else, and like that you're not overestimating. I'm sure you do. We all do. But you're not overestimating yourself. It seems like you're trying to give yourself a fair shake.
It's interesting when you say that, because like I have been doing a lot of research into like social media and specifically why people want to become social media influencers, and two things that have come up that have been like weirdly reflected in this conversation is like, first of all, it's like what's the most important quality that people see in a social media influencer? Do you guys want to take a guess? What about you, Godzilla?
I guess like a sort of confidence with it. I'm interested.
Genuinity. There we go. I'm going with that. Go ahead.
That's it. Authenticity.
Hey! I was like, wait, you know what? I was like, Asmongold's not attractive.
So attractiveness, like physical attraction, was like number 9 on the list. It was way lower than you would have thought, and that has me thinking. Like, I guess that's sort of what's got me thinking about like, well, now hang on, what is authenticity? in an online space, but then the other side of it, what we were talking about something else, just you mentioned something there, God's will. About people, about being self-aware. One of the number one reasons people want to become a social media influencer is to change the world, and to me, what I do is I give people 20 to 50 minutes where they can sit down and they can not think about all the other bullshit in their life, and like it's going to be pleasantly written, it's going to be engaging enough, and there's going to be like some jokes in there, and hopefully a point that lets people kind of meditate on it a little bit. But I don't see my stuff as anything more than like escapism. I am not trying to change people's lives. I am not trying to make a difference. This is just, hey, you have had a shitty day. Here is a video that you can relax with. That I don't see it as anything more than that.
I do believe that. Like, it's more like, hey, like, I like this thing. Please listen to it. I hope you enjoy. And
not even please listen. Just whatever.
There
it is.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, I wouldn't say you're asking people to come and listen. It's like, here's the thing I like.
Yeah, it goes back to that thing I said with the audience, where it's like, I'm gonna make this. If you don't want to watch it, cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset. I think that's the best mindset. Like, I think that's also like why it's like authentic, because it's like not even like, I hope you enjoy this. It's like, I enjoy this. It's like
he doesn't want to not call you authentic. He's like, you know what? What you just said is really authentic.
I know, right? Like, I'm trying to move away from that. I'm trying not to be like, oh man,
okay,
let me keep buttering up this guy. But
let me put one more just final thing to think about with the authenticity discussion, and then we'll leave that particular.
We'll leave
discussion.
it go. Yeah.
The more people like me, the more money I make. So it is in my best interest to make people like me. And the best way to do that, as we saw from like that chart, is to come across as authentic. So what is real authenticity in that world? What is that?
Breaking the veil like that is real authenticity. This is a really authentic guy.
But maybe
there he goes again, guys. Let's clap it up.
Maybe that's part of the scam. Oh,
you can't escape. You're authentic, man.
No.
You might just accept it, man. You might just be an authentic person. But the closest thing we're gonna get to one.
I'm absolutely gonna turn this into a bit in the next video.
He's a real guy.
I love the philosophical like debate today. This is like one of my favorite episodes for sure.
For sure.
It has some great ones, but I wish part of me, and this kind of goes into our point. Part of me wishes that we weren't on camera. Some of this, like, I want this.
We always have the best conversations when we're off camera, and I'm like, damn, we need to record this shit, and then we record, and it's like,
because we're getting
it's great, but
the idea is that we're getting, like you said earlier, like this is a pretty. I would like to believe that this is a pretty genuine version of you right now, but I'm sure even you, because I know I am. I have to sometimes select my words a little bit more carefully, just because we're on
recorded
camera.
Media for sure that can reflect.
Like,
it's not like I'm hiding anything. I don't want to make people believe that, but that's.
I would like to think that, like, I'm being genuine, and I'd like to think that you guys are being genuine, but we're also making a piece of content. You know, like, if we thought that this conversation was lulling or boring, we'd probably try and move it on because we don't want people to get bored. Yeah. And so, how authentic is that?
For me, it's very authentic because I'm just not a boring person. So
I'm very boring.
Start right there. I appreciate all this, man. This is fantastic.
No, this has been a wonderful conversation. Like, just overall.
This makes me uncomfortable because this is the kind of podcast where it's like, and then we lost all the recording. You know, you do like a podcast and you just really fucking like hit it, and it's like, the chemistry's there, and you get to all these interesting points, and then oh shit, my microphone wasn't working.
We went through all those earlier. Yeah, like we definitely had those situations.
As heard for sure. Right? So far, at least I see the recording button happening. Power still on. Knock on wood. All right. I think honestly, this has been a banger of an episode, and like I want to like outside of this podcast, just hang out and just talk with you more. Just sort of see like hopefully at some point
in the future I'm gonna be like, I'd like to travel to American cons, but it's kind of tricky because like it's fucking expensive. But hopefully with cons going, they're gonna open up the doors to like international guests, and I can actually like see some people again, which would just rule so much.
Yeah, I'm sure a con would be willing to pay for you to get down there. I feel like
they have done before, but I think COVID kind of shut all that down.
Hampered
and
it
I
down,
think like international guests are like just that 1 degree more complicated still. So we'll see.
I can't wait for you to come back. Please let me know like when you're back anywhere in the US. I'll make it out there, and definitely got to catch up and shoot the shit like even more. So I would like to dive into it.
It'd be great to like even just grab some lunch or a beer with you guys.
Yeah, man.
That'd be sick.
About it. Yeah, me, Josh, we got this. Yeah, like that'd be tight. And this was a fantastic episode. It's making me think about like just even like my own habits. Like, how do I talk to people? What's a genuine, what's genuine, and like what is it that I want to portray more to people? And I guess like what is that super ego that I'm wanting to portray? And then I guess like who am I really? So this episode is like leaving me with a lot to think about. And
it's left me with a lot to think about too, honestly. And like I can't wait to do the section on authenticity in my video now. I'm gonna make it so creepy.
Please, I'll be like, we made it, boys. This is us. This is sick. Thank you so much, man. Like I've been wanting to talk with you for a minute. I was scared to ask because I know you're busy, but it means a lot that you spent time with us. And
this was my pleasure. Seriously, I had a great time.
Thank you so much. I'm hoping to put this episode out today, so I'll stay tuned for that. But
cool. Tag me on Twitter, and I'll give it I'll throw it out.
We're gonna have to play with the authenticity thing. Like, we're gonna have his face on the cover, but we gotta make it to where it's like the Da Vinci Code mask, or
yeah.
We gotta do something. We gotta make something where it's like, I don't know. It's gonna be great.
I'm hyped. I'm hyped to see like what can happen. I'm not like an expert, but we'll see what happens. But dude, thank you so much for being on this episode. It was a pleasure to talk with you just about like your process and like who you are, and yeah, I can't wait till the next time. I'm really excited for what's next for us. And I guess anything that you want to say or promote or just say to the world.
Nah, it's okay. I don't. People. Maybe some people could unfollow. That'd be cool.
Make it a little easier, right? Hey, I dig it. Thank you so much. Anything you want to say, Josh?
Yeah, I want to correct something. I said Da Vinci Code. I meant anonymous mask. That's
okay.
That, I'm good.
The genuine guy. There we go. Well, cool, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys. This was such a blast.
Thank you. And as everyone to listen all the way through, definitely appreciate you. Let us know what you love about these episodes. Love to hear it. Subscribe, do all that shit. As always, stay dope, folks. Peace.
Peace.